Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Demystifying Personal Statements and College Essays session. There's a bit of a need for people at the moment around the school and parents to help support the students to feel like they are in a better place knowing what they need to be doing to prepare for these essays. So without further ado, let's crack on. So this is what we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering how you write for your applications in the UK, the US, Canada, and Europe. So we're going to first start with the UK side. We're going to look at what is a personal statement, what does one look like, how are these reviewed when in their place in the admissions process. We're going to then go through what the European and Canadian letters of motivation are like, and then go through the process of a framework of how to write a personal statement. Now, when we look over at the US side, we are going to look at how it differs from the personal statement from the UK. So the US Common App Essay is what we look at. The Common App Essay is the one that generally goes to the majority of the universities which you apply to. So that's the one we're focusing on. There are additional essays that we look at in grade 12 later. We're also going to look at how those essays are looked at in terms of admissions decisions. How are they assessed? Do's and don'ts of what to do when it comes to writing the essay, some common structures, and look at some frameworks and strategies on how to write these essays. So let's look at the US and the UK and their differences. So both systems will ask for some writing, but both are very different to each other. The UK one is very much focused on you demonstrating suitability in your academics, giving evidence on how you demonstrate your suitability and preparedness to study at undergraduate level. There's an element of you thinking about work experience and how you are able to manage a certain type of course load at university. The US is very different in terms of its approach. So you can't just write for one and then use the writing for the US. You can't write for the UK and then use it for the US. The US is focused upon a lot more introspective approach. So that means students need to reflect and consider life experience and write about this. If that's difficult and challenging, they could be explaining and expressing themselves in terms of what values and qualities that they hold dear and important. Really, what the universities are trying to gain from this writing from both the UK and US are very different as well. In the US, they're looking to pull and understand more about you as a person, and therefore how you will then fit into the community in which you're around when you're on campus in the US. The UK, they're looking to see for gaining additional evidence on how suitable you are, especially when they're looking at very clear, objective numbers and points of entry requirement. It gives a little extra additional bit for them to understand how you get on in your academics. So the systems are very different. The US, the system itself, it's a lot more holistic in its nature. That means they're looking at you as a whole and how you would fit into the community, obviously, as well as the academics. In the UK, they are definitely focusing more on your academics, and therefore that comes across in the style of writing that they expect from you.
Okay, so before we dive into the personal statements, I've just got this slide here to help show the differences between the different types of essays. So as you'll see along the column on the left, you've got personal statement, college essay, and letter of motivation. If we are reading crossways, we can see that the personal statement is the terminology that you would use in the UK for the essay component of your application. It focuses on academics, it doesn't focus on your personal characteristics or values. It also doesn't mention the name of the university, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail. And UK typically doesn't require any additional essays apart from your personal statement. As you'll see, and we'll go into more detail, the US is very different. It doesn't so much focus on academics, but it does focus on who you are as a person. And then along the bottom, you've got a letter of motivation, which is the common terminology that you will hear in Europe and Canada for that essay component if they do ask for that when it comes to the application. For that, it's typically academic, so it's very similar, as Mr. Forrester said, to the UK, but that's where you're tailoring your letter specifically to the university. So this slide might be helpful for you to go back to remember the key differences between the different essays, particularly if you're a student that's applying to multiple destinations.
So let's look at how we will get to all of those wonderful resources to show you how to write your UK personal statements. In your Schoology, you go to groups and then you find college counselling. Then you'll be landing on updates. You want to go to the resources because we're looking for resources. And then we go under making applications because this is part of you making an application. You then go to UK personal statements, and on here you will find in the top right page that pops up is a lesson of me going through step by step how to write your personal statement. Do utilize that. And then further down the slides on the left here that go alongside that lesson, starting on slide 33, and then the personal statement help sheet you will find there, which gives a lot of details to support you with your writing. The next image down, you'll find a worksheet that will help you answer a series of quick questions that will help you to plan for your writing, and a Bridge You personal statement template. Then we've got some actual examples of personal statements that have been used in the past. You'll be able to see the structure there and just to have a good read. So each of these images of tiles can then be selected and opened up for you then to see the resource. Do spend some time looking at these resources before you start writing your first draft.
So a breakdown of a personal statement, it's 4,000 characters, so it's approximately 500 words. So it's not very many words to work with. So everything has to be very much tailored to the course that you're applying to. When you're looking to apply to UK universities, there's a couple of things that you need to think about. The first thing is that you're applying to a specific degree program or a subject. So you need to make sure that your personal statement is tailored to that. As opposed to the US, where you're applying to a college, you're applying to be a part of a community, you will write one personal statement and that will go to all of your up to 5 choices in the UK because there's a centralised system called UCAS. And when it comes to who reads your application, they could be read by a central admissions team or they could be read by a subject tutor or professor. Typically, the more highly competitive the universities, it's more likely that you're going to get someone with an academic background in that particular area. So if you are applying, for example, to engineering at Imperial, there may be a subject tutor from the engineering department that's going to read it. So that's where it's really important to be able to share why you want to apply to that program and for them to know that you know what that engineering program is about and why you want to study it. So just as a bit of a breakdown, if this was your page and you're looking at your application, the initial paragraph is how you became interested in X subject, and that's your hook into the application. If you think about it, admissions teams or a subject tutor could read thousands of applications. You want yourself to be memorable in that process. So making sure you tell that story, only briefly though, is really important. The key bulk of what your personal statement is going to focus on is how your current studies and experiences relate to the subject that you are looking to apply to. And Mr. Forrester will go into that in more detail. But as you can see here, that forms about 80% or 3 to 4 paragraphs of your personal statement. As you come towards the end, you're going to mention your extracurricular activities, and then you will conclude to highlight why you'd be a strong student in that particular program. As I say, you're using one personal statement to 5 choices, so it's really important that you cover all of your choices in that statement. So typically that means that you are only applying to one type of program because it's very, very difficult to have a marketing program, a software engineering and a sports program because your personal statement simply isn't going to match those different subject choices. So this is just a graphic just to highlight what I've just said, and you'll see it coming up in later in the presentation when Mr. Forrester is speaking about different strategies for writing your different types of college or university admission essay. So this is just something I wanted to highlight and bring to your attention. When it comes to the personal statement, as I've mentioned, it's very much about your academics. You can almost see it as an academic job interview. Why would you be a good person working or studying or being an apprentice in a research or in a particular subject? This is a couple of quotes that I've taken from Christ College in Cambridge, just to indicate why that becomes so important when it comes to the personal statement. So as they've quoted here, top UK universities are actually less interested in extracurricular activities, although they are very valuable for your overall development. But when it comes to your personal statement, they're less interested in that. And they're more interested in things that are directly relevant to your given subject. And again, we'll talk about that shortly. So a lot of the questions I get from students are like, how do I demonstrate that academic interest, or how do I build that experience? And they'll talk about reading books and podcasts and all those types of things. They're great, but something I would just say is to not make a habit of making a huge tick list of things to read and do. It's more important that whatever you do or you read, you engage in and you think actively about the connections in that given subject. So as you can see on the quote here, Christ College in Cambridge has said it's not enough to say I took this particular class or this online course or I read this book. You should also explain where that given content is going to take you. So, for example, after studying a course, I became interested in this aspect or this particular theory, and this led me to go read this topic area or start a blog or start a discussion group, so we could dive more into the different intricacies of that given topic. At the bottom part of the slide, it's just to highlight that there is a difference between extracurricular and supercurricular when it comes to your application, and that's more important for universities like Oxford and Cambridge. But if that applies to you and you are looking at universities like Oxford and Cambridge, then please talk to your college counsellor and we can advise more on that particular area.
So as we have a growing number of students that are applying to Europe, and Canada still is an important destination for our students, I often get asked, how do we write for Canada and for European destinations? It causes a lot of anxiety as well, because students feel like now they have to all of a sudden learn a whole new approach and a whole new way of writing for Europe or Canada. The good news is you've already done it if you're using the UK personal statement. All you have to do is realize that it's like a sandwich. You're adding on an extra piece from the main meat of the UK personal statements. You're adding a bit of bread at the top and a bit of bread at the bottom. So the bit that you're adding at the beginning of your UK personal statement is, why are you interested in the university? Like a why us essay, if you have learned anything about the US style essays. Then the bit at the bottom is why you and the university are a good fit. So basically we're talking about a sandwich. Fortunately, I've just had lunch, so I'm not hungry. But see the UK's personal statement as your starting point if you are only applying to European or Canadian destinations. And then go from there, think about why the specific university to each different university you apply to. So the bits of bread are going to change every different university that you apply to. Some of you may be applying to 10 to 11 different universities in Europe. That's okay. The good news is this: not every single European university will ask for a letter of motivation. You'll have a small handful only. So you'll only have to write those additional pieces of bread for a small handful only. And the same can be said for the Canadian institutions as well. The majority don't ask for the letters of motivation, but there are some, such as UBC, that do. So this is why we include this there for them. So start with your UK personal statement if you are going to these destinations, to support you in writing your first draft of your US Common App essay. Go from updates into resources. You select your resources and then you go to making applications, then onto US essay resources. Click there and then you will see a video of me going through how to write a Common App essay. But on the right here, this is key. We're going to be exploring this in a little while. The workbook with a range of brainstorming activities leading you up to first draft. This little circle here is actually the slides that support the video above. And scrolling down, you can see examples of Common App essays. And later in grade 12, we'll be looking at these supplemental essays here as well. So obviously you can then go to your workbook, open that up, and start working through the various brainstorming activities, helping lead you to come up with topics that you can then put into a plan.
Moving on to the US personal essay, also known as the college essay. You've already seen these slides talking about the differences between the US and the UK in terms of the academics, and the fact that you're applying to different academic systems, and you're applying in the UK you're applying to a specific subject, and in the US you're applying to a university at large. It means the requirements in the essays that you'll be sending will be different as well. Whereas in the UK, you need to talk more about your work experiences, test the days, your reading, your academics, and so on in your personal statement. In the US, you have separate spaces for all of these. So when it comes to the US essay, you are talking about yourself as a student. And to understand how this happens, we'll take a look at what we call holistic admissions, which is the system used in the US for deciding who gets admitted to universities. And as part of those requirements, you have your US college essay. However, it is only just one part of a larger application package, which includes your grades and test scores at the top. And then you have your recommendation letters, which give opinions about what your teachers think your potential, your ability, and your application is. Then there's extracurricular activities and community activities about who you are beyond the classroom, how you're going to contribute in the university environment and community. Then we'll talk about writing essays and supplements, which was the subject of this presentation. But some universities, particularly when you are applying for art, architecture, and more art-based programs, you may be required to submit a portfolio. They'll also take a look at your honors and any other achievements that you have been able to have during your time in high school. The essay, therefore, is only just one part of a larger system that displays who you are as a student. It is very different, though, because it is one opportunity where you can express yourself and speak beyond the predefined. Remember, your grades are already there. Your recommendation letters are about the opinions of other people. The extracurricular activities you are doing and the achievements you've had are all done. So the essay is an opportunity for you to make it all make sense. How does it all tie in together to bring out who you are as a person? This is an opportunity for you to have your own voice heard, an opportunity you can use to stand out from a pool of other students. You are the subject of your personal essay, right? The main purpose of it is to demonstrate values, skills, qualities, and interests that you bring with you to the campus. Basically, who you are beyond what is already given in your grades, recommendation letters, and other sources. The interest is in your ability to demonstrate your personal development, insight, and motivation for a certain area of study. You want to show the university how you're going to contribute to the university community, while also showing what has led you to want to study in that university, or more importantly, to pursue higher education. Readers seek to understand your character, background, and value as a potential student. Who you are holistically, not just based on what grades you've achieved, what subjects you've taken, but who you are as a person and what kind of student you are going to be in the university community. Most importantly, your essay should be about you, not another person or thing. An insightful college essay requires deep self-reflection, authenticity, and balance between confidence and vulnerability. Your essay shouldn't be a resume of your achievements, activities. Instead, it should be a story that demonstrates your important values and qualities. As you choose your essay topics, there are some things to consider. You want an essay topic that will allow you to be you and be unique, and therefore it should be something that is easy to read, light enough, but also personal, and also not something that is overused. So there are some cliche topics that you need to avoid. Talking about sports, role models, and those kind of topics, tend to end up talking more about the item itself and less about you. You also want to avoid topics that make you sound like you will not be able to adjust to university, like struggling to adjust to a new life, immigrant stories, moving homes, parent separation, and so on. You also don't want to talk about becoming a better person after doing community service, traveling, or summer camp. That's one of those really, really cliche topics. You also don't want to talk about something that happens to every student, like overcoming a difficult class. Every student has gone or struggled through that. Unless there's a particular special occurrence that is really unique and defines who you are, absolutely. But if it's just general, please try to avoid it. The other things that you really should avoid at all costs. You don't want to be overly personal. That is talking about illness, injury, romantic or sexual relationships. Some of these topics will really not be palatable to the reader. You also don't want to talk about very broad topics that are not too personal, like hunger, world peace. You want to keep it as closely related to you as possible. You want to avoid being too negative, right? Don't be too boring. You don't want to be just listing your achievements. Most of that information is already provided. And avoid topics that are inappropriate for a college essay, like illegal activities, offensive humor, false statements about yourself, or even like bragging about your privileges.
Two approaches we use. The narrative structure. The narrative structure will help you think about an insightful moment in your life and go deep into that one moment. And the montage structure will help you go wide with a series of different aspects of you and your life and your viewpoints.
So at the end of the day, there are really no foolproof college essay topics. Whatever your topic is, the key is to write about it effectively. And therefore, your focus should be, what does it take to find a good topic for your essay? A good topic is meaningful, specific, and personal to you. It focuses on you and your experiences. And it reveals something beyond your test scores, grades, and extracurricular activities, which have already been provided to the university. It should also be creative and original. You want to write something that is unique. You are the only of yourself. You're the only kind there is of yourself. So try to pick up something that is specific, personal to you, and is able to really showcase who you are. Finally, housekeeping. When it's all said and done, there are certain questions that you need to ask yourself to really think about whether your essay has been effective in conveying the message that you want to send to the readers. Does the essay provide a direct answer to the essay or to the essay question? For whatever prompt you've chosen, you want to make sure that that prompt is fully explored. Does it have strong opening paragraph? You also need to ask yourself, does it put forth a comprehensive argument or narrative? Does the student make a point and stick to it, right? You need to make your point, pick your subject, and make sure that you fully explore and you stick to it throughout the essay. You also have to think about, does it have a natural style that's comfortable for the student and appropriate for the subject matter? Does the student use effective word choice, syntax, and structure? All of these are things that we can really help you with as you explore and go through the process of writing your essay. The earlier you get started, the more time you're going to be able to get help from your college counselor. We will help you about looking at correct grammar, punctuation, spelling. We'll make sure that we help you making sure your essay is succinct, and we pay attention to the recommended length and the number of words. For the Common App essay, that will be 650 words. It might look like a lot of words, but when you start thinking about summarizing your entire life in 650 words, it suddenly feels like too little. So you want to make sure that every word, every phrase, every sentence there is used effectively and appropriately.
So also, in addition to the Common App essay, we also have supplemental essays, further essays in which students need to write. We're not going to be looking at that today. We're coming to a close and on to a quiz in a second, but just to be rest assured that we will in grade 12 be looking at supplemental essays, the 6 main types of supplemental essays. There are a few more, but these are the main ones, and that there is this, but we'll be focusing on it in due course. So here is our activity. Our activity is this. Scan the QR code, answer the quiz on the form, and see how many marks that you can get. It's just going to ask you a bunch of questions to help see how much you've retained, how much you know, and you may also come back to it later if you didn't get all of them right to improve on your results. So get those phones out and let's go to it. Okay, so here is a brief recap of the structure of how you can go about writing your personal statement for the UK. Introduction, academic suitability, extracurricular activities, conclusion. Remember, all of this will need evidence, so think evidence as you go about each section. So let's look at what it would look like in the introduction. What things do you need to focus on? I know that Dr. Hollins has just gone through and spoken to you about the hook, or the idea of getting a reader to engage in your text. I second that. It's important to grab the reader's attention. Okay, it's your chance to do that. Also, things that you can focus upon in that introduction is demonstrating your personal passion for the subject. Was there a pivotal moment in which you realized and decided that your particular subject was something that you wanted to understand even more? Was there a particular skill or academic skill that you have developed that then realized that you have a strong aptitude for a particular subject? So this is where you begin to discuss any major influences or aspirations that may have led you to this subject choice. That's your So here is that really all-important section of discussing your academic achievements. You can talk about what you're doing in class and how that's preparing you for the course. That goes in this section, and we're going to talk about how you would do that in the next slide. However, it's not just what you're doing in class that helps to prepare for you in the course that you're doing, but also you're trying to provide evidence, lots of evidence that shows that you're going beyond the demands of the curriculum in which you're studying. So if you're doing an IB, you're going to show that you're doing something beyond what is in IB. So if you're looking at physics at degree level, your IB physics is great. It prepares you for it. You find lots of links between kind of what they're doing in their course relative to what you've learned and so on. But then maybe you could then demonstrate that you've gone beyond what the IB are delivering. So things like there could be MOOCs to really show, which is a massive open online course, and a specialized field or area that you're really strongly interested in. Something like, if you are interested in physics, maybe it could be something related to astrophysics or quantum theory or something like this. So the idea is that you're demonstrating a real kind of curiosity and thirst for the subject itself, not just only for the IB grade. Okay, the same goes for AP students. Okay, now there are other ways to demonstrate you're going beyond the curriculum requirements and demonstrating your academic achievements. There could be academic competitions. There could be journals, serious newspaper and journals, scientific research that you're reading. Are you engaging in a wide range of TED Talks? And then what you're doing is not just simply listing those out, as Dr. Hollins said earlier on, but you want to then elaborate on what you've learned from that and where is that leading you on to beyond that activity, okay? So we've got subjects, things in school you're doing, providing evidence, growing that evidence throughout this whole section, looking at further achievements that you've done, in competitions, other ways that you're demonstrating you go beyond the course, MOOCs, all other ranges of other things that show that you're really interested in this subject. And also do remember that not everybody has had an international education, so you can frame your academic achievements in context to your personal background here too. When we're talking about how do I link what I'm currently studying and prove it that it's demonstrating my suitability for the course at undergraduate level, how do you do that? Well, this little framework is going to show you. Top right, it's the course content at university. So that means you have to read the course descriptors for the university courses in which you're applying for. If you don't know what you're writing for and what you're proving you're suitable for, you're not going to be convincing. So make sure you're reading what you're applying for. What is it that they are delivering in the course? Is it delivered in a specific way? Are there slightly different nuances between the courses? Psychology in Bath will be different to psychology in York. So just because it's got the same name descriptor, be aware of that. There are some history courses that don't cover certain time periods. So then if your personal statement starts talking about those time periods, the ones that you've studied in class, then you're obviously going to have a disconnect and demonstrate that you don't know what you are trying to show that you're suitable for. So make sure those course pages are read. Then think about, what am I doing? Top left now. What are we thinking? What have we done in our high school curriculum? You can get access to the AP curriculum. You can get access to your IB curriculum. You could also ask your teachers if they have the Common Core curriculum as well that you can then write for from your regular classes. So read the curriculum that you're doing, that you're learning in school. Look at the skills and the learning outcomes that you are achieving. Reflect upon the things that you've been achieving in class as well. It doesn't just have to be something in text from a curriculum. And then you're looking, the next bit down, for the links between the university and the school curriculum. When you find those links, you then need to start to demonstrate the common areas between the current and the future course, where you are developing those skills now, showing that you'll be able to continue with those skills and give evidence, 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 okay? Support your statements with evidence and further supporting points. So then we're going to look at our extracurricular activities. Yes, there are supercurricular activities, extracurricular activities, supercurricular activities being extracurricular activities related very specifically to the course, and extracurricular activities being about you in the community and anything outside the class. So that can be some sport, some music, some service club you've done, or even a group that you're involved in outside of the school environment. It doesn't have to be inside the school. When thinking about all the things you've done, by the way, you should have done this by now with your extracurricular activities document that we shared at the beginning of the year. You can trawl through that list, think about what skills are relevant to the course that you are applying to, give a statement about what skill you have, what thing you bring to the university, and then use the extracurricular activity as the supporting evidence to show that you demonstrate that skill or that kind of quality, like communication skills or time management or organization. Don't simply just list them out. Give the statement of the things that you can do, the skills, and then support it with the stuff that you've done in your extracurricular activity. It looks like then you are reflecting upon what you have done and how it prepares you. And by the way, if you'd have done that activity properly before, where you were reflecting upon each of your activities, this paragraph will be a doddle because you will just be condensing bits of A4 to 2 A4 pages that you've already written. And then our conclusion needs to be only a couple of sentences or so where you're tying all the extracurricular and the academic achievements together, being concise and also being very mindful of your character limit. So the final bit that I want to share with you on UK personal statements is, let's look at that structure. Let's look at an example. So we know there's an introduction, academic suitability, extracurricular activity, and conclusion structure. So based on that, you can see that reflected on the example of a personal statement here on the left. Notice, as Dr. Hollins said, we have the majority of the essay in the grabbing the interest, demonstrating your interest in the reader, in the subject, sorry, and demonstrating your academic suitability section. That's forming 75 to 80% of your writing there if you were to combine the intro and the second larger, weightier chunk section there. So then your final bits, your extracurricular activities, literally a condensed paragraph with a final conclusion with 1 or 2 sentences where you reorient the reader. You can see it all there. Hi, before we go into the guide for writing your Common App essay, I just want to share a little bit of info, a summarized version of some info that I wrote on a blog post, just to kind of set the scene before we go into the how-to. Okay, so there's a little bit more of the what, like you had with Mr. Sabanda, then we'll go into the how. So I'm going to use Speechify to do this, and I'm going to give you a break from the dulcet tones of my voice, and here we go.
A Common App essay is your chance to showcase your best self and think deeply. It's not just a mandatory task, but an opportunity for self-reflection and self-understanding. At the most selective schools, a strong essay can tip the balance in your favor because grades and tests alone aren't enough. Essays personalize your application, revealing who you are, what's important to you, and how you think. Margaret Dahl, Director of Admissions at Yale University, says the essay is integral to understanding the applicant. Harry Bald, an author on college admissions essays, describes it as showing you at your alive and thinking best. When writing your essay, honesty and self-reflection are key, balance making a good impression with being genuine. Delcy Phillips, former director of admissions at Haverford College, emphasizes the essay as an exploration of self. Avoid writing bland essays out of fear. Instead, tell your story and illustrate your points with personal details. Most prompts ask, "Tell us about yourself," seeking insights not evident from the rest of your application. Jonathan Stroud, Vice President for Enrollment and Communications at Earlham College, notes that what you do with the topic is crucial. A good essay tells a story, often based on personal experience, making it lively and interesting. Think about the qualities you want to convey and represent them through your narrative. The advice to show, don't tell still holds true. Admissions readers enjoy their work and want to understand you. Treat them as human beings and they will respond positively. For inspiration, look up examples from Tufts, Johns Hopkins, and Connecticut College by searching essays that worked. Use broad prompts to craft an essay that truly reflects who you are.
So let's talk about the process, how to do the writing on the essay, the Common App essay, okay? This is the how-to, the different structures and types that you can write to show all those things that Mr. Sabanda was asking you and telling you that's required from it. So I'm going to say something quite controversial right now. Ignore the Common App prompts. There are 7 prompts that they give you, and the final one says, write anything you want to write about. They are all trying to drive you towards writing about yourself, reflecting and sharing your values and who you are and how you see the world. So basically, why don't we just start with that and then look back at the prompts and see which one you have written for, and don't worry if it doesn't write for any of them, you just select the final prompt, which then says write any type of essay that you want to, okay? So 2 approaches we use. The narrative structure. The narrative structure will help you think about an insightful moment in your life and go deep into that one moment. And the montage structure will help you go wide with a series of different aspects of you and your life and your viewpoints. So now I'm just going to talk about the montage approach as a general concept. First of all, you need to think about what topic that you're going to write about. I know Mr. Sabanda's talked about write about yourself, but you're writing about yourself related to this kind of topic area. So it might be hockey. It can be something common like hockey, but as long as you're thinking about the links and the values in an uncommon way, okay? So we have a series of snapshots with those little bubbles there. You see these little kind of snapshot images above those bubbles. Each snapshot, I liken it to a film, maybe a rom-com where boy meets girl, and then you start to see all of these little moments that lead up to the rest of the dialogue or the narrative. So you might have some music playing with like about 4 or 5 different scenes that tell the story, that makes the reader or the viewer fill the gaps in between each moment that they're seeing as a snapshot in themselves. They're filling in the rest of the information themselves. And that way you don't have to go deep into one particular moment in these snapshots, but have a variety of them. But what you do need to do is relate these qualities or values that you're exploring in each snapshot of you or paragraph and reflecting upon them to meet the demands of the US Common App essay. All right. So each paragraph will have you talking about the value and reflecting it, linking the topic to your value, talking about how did you achieve this particular quality or value, as well as going deeper with it, additional details in so what moments. The other approach was the narrative. Now, this is not an unfamiliar strategy to you because a narrative is like a story about a particular moment that you've gone through. And this is something that will be familiar to you where you're writing a narrative, where you're building up an issue and then coming to a resolution and then an epilogue where you look back and reflect upon it. What is going to be a challenge, which most students find difficult, is not making the challenge and its effects that you're writing about take over the whole essay. This is a common issue that students do. So what we're doing is reflecting upon a single moment that changed your perspective using a story mountain where you've got 3 clear sections. What was the challenge and its effect on you? What did you feel as a result of that issue? How did that feeling that you needed to then improve upon lead you to take some kind of action, which is the second point, which is at the top of the mountain there, which is what did I do about my problem or my challenge, and why did you do these things? The challenge itself is not about you. The what did you do about it is the bit where we're starting to learn more about you and how you go about dealing with issues. And then obviously this self-reflective piece is very important as well. Looking back, what is my new perspective? How do you see the world in a different way? What have I learned? That's far too often a final thought in someone's essays rather than a good 1/3 of an essay. So if you follow this strategy, this approach, you've got 2/3 of things you've done and new thoughts and final reflections, introspection in there as well. So how do we get to this first draft using this narrative and or montage approach? This workbook is something for you to step-by-step read through and work on. It's a framework to go from brainstorming of a range of different thoughts and ideas that are associated with you, what's important to you, to then lead you on to choosing a topic that then you can then plan and then write to your first draft. So this is our framework that we're going through. So your first brainstorming activity on this workbook, which you have seen, found also in the Schoology pages, is the values exercise. Remember, we're talking about how are we linking a certain set of values to the kind of overall and arching topic that you're talking about. Well, clearly it's important for you to think about what values you hold most important that reflect you, so you can advocate for a series of things that are important to you. All right, so this is where your voice can start to come out if you're following this. So you don't need to do this now, but just to be aware that this task is how to reflect upon your values. And then once you've reflected upon your values, you're now going to work on some further brainstorming, get some ideas of things that you could consider. So we have a series of brainstorming activities in this workbook. I Know I Love is a 1 minute activity for you to read through and write without thinking all the things that you know lots of things about, or things that you love doing, or what things that you actually love. The next section is talking about essence objects. It's another brainstorming activity where you reflect on particular objects, tangible things that represent things to you, such as memories and moments or relationships or values. Okay, and then there are a series of questions that support you there. The superpower skill plus other questions section is very similar to the I Know I Love. What things am I really good at? What is my superpower? Write them down. A few questions to support you coming up with some further ideas. Then we have got career. So career is basically, if you know what you want to do, for example, engineer, then you can think about the 4 to 5 most important qualities that you think an engineer needs. All right. Then obviously you're going to reflect on times where you've demonstrated those things. So, for example, logical brain processing thinking, or being very persistent and problem solving. These things, then you can talk about how you have achieved your problem solving skills over time and then reflecting upon them. So that's quite straightforward. Yet you don't tell your reader that that's the career you're going for until the end. The big reveal comes at the end. And you've got a couple more brainstorming activities. Identity. We all have a range of different aspects of our character that we all identify with, okay? So, you know, it could be somebody, it could be your nationality, it could be a group of people that you belong to and spend time with. It could be a role that you play. Like, you know, I'm a dad and a college counsellor, but I'm also a British person and a Canadian. So there's a range of different identities there that I could then kind of explore. Okay, so that's what that's about. And home section is about you thinking about things that you're doing or places where you are, or where you find your flow, or where you feel comfortable within yourself. Where do you feel most in yourself? Okay, and so all of those things will then lend themselves to a final topic finding mission. So then you'll find like a series of these 6 different colors. You'll find 3 now and then 3 later on the workbook, where it helps you to start picking out some ideas that you could possibly explore for a topic. So here is what you do with each of those ideas for topics. You do a little spider diagram. What you do is you brainstorm with the topic in the middle, and then with a series of values that are associated with that aspect. So it might be something that you're really good at, or a place where you feel very comfortable at home, or in one single identity that you feel encompasses a range of different values, or a superpower that you feel you've got. And then you try to look for the values that are associated to them. Do that to a series of different topics. And then what you may find is some topics lend themselves to different values in different ways, some better than others. So then finding a way to find uncommon links if you've got a common topic. So if your topic is quite common, like something like hockey or sports, for example, then the idea is that you use the values that you associate with that topic as being uncommon values usually associated with hockey. Okay, so find uncommon links to values, and then you start to then expand on each of those ideas. So you take each value in turn, link the topic to the value, talk about how you've achieved that particular quality or value, and then give the additional details, the so what moment. So you're repeating that in each paragraph. So you have then a series of paragraphs that talk about what's important to you and what things you do or how have you achieved that value, and with some reflection at the end in each single paragraph. So we learn more and more about you. Here is an example of an unusual topic called laptop stickers. With this, this is literally a plan. So once you've gone from your spider diagram brainstorming from before, then you can put it into a table form, which you then can slowly expand on. So we can see that one of the values that the stickers on a laptop for this author had was creativity. And then we talked about how they developed creativity within the laptop sticker, giving examples of their creativity, how they achieve creativity, and then the so what, the insight, the reflection. So that continues on with a range of different values. Here's an example of a partial part of an essay, the Trivial Pursuit essay. So we've got the topic, Trivial Pursuit. We are writing about ourselves here, yet under the topic of Trivial Pursuit. So we use that first paragraph here to introduce the topic and link it to the person. We link it to ourselves here. And then we start talking about each value. So we've got blue, which is the link to Trivial Pursuit section. And then geography. Obviously, the person is really interested in things related to geography. And then we explore how they achieve and develop their knowledge and understanding in this area. And then talking about the so what, the reflection, and the learning from this particular area of this person's life. So we've got patience, be the discussion of patience being developed through this person's love for geography, and so on. So you can see we've got value, how did we achieve it, reflection. Next paragraph, value, link it to the topic, how did we achieve it, and reflection. So on to the narrative structure. The narrative structure, we've already talked about how there are three main parts, not to spend all your time in the problem itself because we don't learn about you. We want to learn about what you've done about it and what you have learnt from the particular challenge. So you're reflecting upon a single significant moment that may have changed your viewpoint. So here's the framework in which you can go about doing that. There are a series of questions above that help you explore what the challenge is, how it made you feel, and what did you need from that situation. Knowing what you needed from that situation will help you then to explore what did you do in order to meet your need, and then you're launching into what did I do about it in more detail. So we're learning how you deal with issues. And then the final section is the what did I learn? We could tick maybe 2 to 3 and expand on each of these values. So we're learning 3 different lessons that you have learnt from this particular challenge. So there is the example of the note form of each section there with the challenge and effects. What did we do about it? What did I learn section? And it's important to explore each of those what did I learn sections in enough detail. So here is that workbook that you can scan to go through all of those activities that we've just gone through.